It's a bit ropey, but yeah, he improved an awful lot. So yeah. Oh, hello. Hello. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got enough. Hopefully my entry list is correct, but if it isn't, well, I'm gonna see because he's part of one of Andrew's panels.
Is it? John Higgins. See, I'm thinking snooker player John Higgins. I'm fairly certain it's not him.
Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hi everybody, very warm welcome along. Thanks for joining us online for the first event in the Camus Mini JCW Cup, powered by Phoenix Racing. And Richard John Neal here, which is, I know, is going to be a shock and a turn-off probably for a lot of people. What's good news is we've got Andy McEwen with us. Andy, hello, how are you?
Good evening, Richard. Absolute nonsense you've started with there. I can tell you the excitement in our Discord channel at having you on board has been palpable. So no, really great to have you on board. I know you're perhaps not quite as experienced in the world of sim racing as I am, but I can assure you you're in for a very, very fun ride over the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, it's been about 3 or 4 years, start of COVID, I think, since I did sim commentary. Funnily enough, it was on minis. Here's the run. Do you want to do the graphic on the calendar and tell people what we're up for?
Yeah, absolutely. The standard sprint racing format is back now. The last few times that we've been here at the VRRC, it's been for our World Endurance League, but we're back now to 25-minute sprint races over 8 weeks, and we are taking in some of the very best racetracks that the UK has to offer. We start tonight at Donington Park on the national circuit, head to Silverstone's international circuit in a week's time, and then one of a couple of real wildcard tracks, actually, tracks that we don't tend to visit here at the VRRC that often. Castle Combe comes up next, followed by Alton Park, Croft, Anglesey up in North Wales, Thruxton down in Hampshire, and it all finishes on the majestic Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit at the end of the season. One dropped round per driver, so you can forget your worst week of racing, and there are trophies for the top 3 come season's end.
I'm dropping 2 rounds. I can't make 2 rounds, unfortunately. And, they are Silverstone next week. Great, because I hate Silverstone with a passion. And Croft, but some great prizes for everybody.
There are indeed, as well as the trophies for top 3 drivers, lots of pretty high-end sim racing gear, actually. The Camus wheel and pedals, all the rage these days, I'm assured, will go to our champion at the end of the season. We also have a sim racing dashboard, courtesy of sponsors Phoenix Sim Racing, and a Mecha sequential shifter, which I really have my eye on. That's the next edition, I think, for my sim rig. And that is the prize for the 3rd place driver. 4th and 5th place get some VRRC branded clothing. And there is, Richard, the driver of the round award that between ourselves, by the end of the evening, we have to decide who's going to be getting that one.
Poison chalice, isn't it? You know, for us, having to pick 1 out of 27, maybe 30 drivers, and upsetting everybody else.
I'm sure they don't mind. Most of them have had it at some point in the recent past. We're just adding to their collection at this point.
Good, but yeah, look forward to that. By the way, I was sort of jesting about Silverstone. I love the fantastic place. And incidentally, was one of the places I had to do a driver of the day on one of the BRDC club meetings, and I picked a non-BRDC driver, which went down like a lead balloon.
I can, yes, I can. But that is all still to come, because, Richard, we've got the cars almost ready to head out on circuit for qualifying, and lots of new liveries to take a look at. So I believe Rich has prepared a little video to help us to identify who's who.
well basically. A weak cross straight heading down into Redgate turn 1. Is it usually a bun fight, Andy, in terms of sim racing? It is in real Formula, isn't it? And then it's down into Hollywood. That's not shown. Crane of curves, old hairpin. Then we start the climb uphill under Starkey's Bridge. Not sure if that's there or not. And then around into McLean's, continuing uphill into the double apex right-hander at Coppice. Then the long run along Starkey's Straight, past the old exhibition centre, and then into the chicane. So really good opportunity. One thing I love about Donington is whether you're running the GP loop or the national circuit, there are those opportunities to overtake on the final few corners. So it does and can set up some great grandstand finishes, but that's my highlight of Donington. I love the fact that you can get those great finishes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those tracks that produces, I think, some of the very best racing in the country. You can go side by side around most of it, and one corner sort of leads directly or indirectly into another, in that if you defend into one corner, you lose momentum, you're under threat into the next one. It always provides great racing, particularly great one-make tin-top racing, I find. So I think we're going to see plenty of that tonight. But, well, that's the bird's eye view of the circuit. Let's ride on board, shall we? And take a look at what it looks like from inside one of our minis. So the Donington Park National Circuit, they're one of my absolute favourites to drive in a front-wheel drive tin-top, and that's exactly what we've got here. Andy Carroll, our chauffeur around the Donington National Circuit. We head downhill in towards the braking zone at Redgate Corner, which certainly can produce some action, using all of the pit entry to open up the entrance to the corner. And you've really got to get that front end rotated, gentle on the power, easy in a front-wheel drive car to understeer wide over the curb. Flat out then through Hollywood before you fling the car over the crest. It goes light, then it bites just as you get to the apex. Keep it to the left into the old hairpin, down a gear, use as much curb on the inside as you can, and again, careful not to accelerate too early. Understeer is not your friend, because you're about to accelerate up this long crest through Starkey's and Schwantz before you hit the brakes again into McLean's. A third gear corner, the curb really helps to rotate the car through there. Again, in front-wheel drive, you need all the rotation you can get. Then comes Coppice, completely blind, actually, from inside the car. You have to brake and commit to the corner long before you can see the apex. And again, it goes on and on forever, drift out wide over the curb. Then we head down the exhibition straight, the exhibition centre to the left, which gives it its name. We've got to ignore that and spot your braking zone just over that crest into the Robert chicane, fire it over one curb, gentle on the second, careful not to drift out onto the grass, and then foot flat to the floor as we accelerate past the pits to begin another lap.
Expertly called. Have you driven it for real?
I'm afraid I have not, Richard. No, only in the virtual world.
Very good. Well, it felt like you had. I think we need to get you out in one of these cars and get you underway. But we've got serious business about to get underway. There's been lots of practice going on over the last couple of days. We've been dipping in and out of the server. I don't think some of these people actually go to work. But qualifying is underway. We've been practicing a heck of a lot, haven't they?
They have. I mean, they take this seriously. You know, we've got some proper prizes on offer. So such a big grid of drivers, such a competitive grid of drivers as well. They all know that it could be that extra little bit of practice that makes the difference. We believe that people like Joel Lask, for example, he's done over 500 laps of practice in the server, and that's only in the server, Richard. The drivers still have the opportunity, if they want to go and do their own private practice away from prying eyes, and I'm sure he's done some of that as well. So Joel Lask, who is a bit of a front-wheel drive expert actually here within the VRRC, he always goes well when we race touring cars and things like that, so I expect him to be a pace setter right from the start.
Okay, Carl Felvis, who doesn't set himself out as a front-wheel drive man, I understand, is actually
we stopped believing that line a while ago, Richard. He's pretty handy in a front-wheel drive.
They do like spinning some of this stuff, don't they? For me, good on the entry list. You know, when I look at this, you know, coming in cold to it, seeing some names that I know, which is wonderful to see. And the first of those on, hello, someone I think was a bit of a cross there, trying to invent some rally cross. Was Nicky Taylor, who of course I know from Mini Challenge, and he's a great youngster, first met him virtually. We did an interview with him and Tom Ingram, who was mentoring him. And Tom managed to get Nicky out of his shell a little bit to have a chat. I forget where they might actually be here doing a test day. But wonderful to have him as a name that I recognise. Several others as Lass goes into provisional pole.
Yeah, I'm intrigued there that Tom Ingram was required to get Nicky Taylor out of his shell. We never have any trouble getting Nicky Taylor to tell us how he's feeling post-race. So
years to go, to be honest.
I see. Well, Tom did good work on Nicky, definitely. He's one of the happiest to chat to us now post-race, which I think we'll be doing a lot of really this season because, as you said, real-world mini experience. He's very, very quick in the front-wheel drive cars on the sim. No surprise to see him near the top. Joel Lass is fastest at the moment. He's on screen now. Chance for us to familiarise ourselves properly with how some of these liveries look out on track, and a very good-looking car. He's part of the Phoenix Sim Racing team now, and he is fastest by 2/10, Richard, which actually, given the fact that the next second takes you all the way down to 17, that's a handy little margin.
It is a good margin. And, get out and get those times in there. So the second, Brad Smith. We've got a fair number of Smiths actually, more than Morrison knows. And Brad Smith, no relation to the others, and also I understand not the truck racing Brad Smith, but the other two Smiths are related to David Smith, who's a wonderful man. Ben Bray, who just let the son sit in the truck, mightily appreciated, and it's actually, I must say, pretty good at that again. Brad Smith, he's a bit of a lad, isn't he, from his driver information?
Yes, all of the drivers have the opportunity to tell us a little about themselves. I'm not going to read word for word what Brad has told us, but he backs himself. I think that's the long and short of it.
He's the hottest male.
Yes, how that converts into lap time, I'm not so sure, but yeah, he certainly comes in with some confidence, doesn't he? So Carl Felvers out of Coppice Corner. Now he's gone fastest in the first sector on this lap. So Carl Felvers starting, or personal best anyway, in the first sector. Green sector 1, not an improvement in sector 2. But Richard, he's about to head through that final chicane. Only needs to find a couple of hundreds to move on to the front row of the grid.
That's the best thing. So we'll make that. House. Top 10, ahead of John Higgins' line, one of the late way up the order, green sector 2 for him. So top 10 rounded off by Nathan Smith. So that is the top racing. 4 years simulator, they're based down in Kent, and I'm guessing they're going to be involved in the truck racing.
Yeah, you would imagine so, and I'm sure they were lobbying pretty hard for some truck racing to make its way onto the VRRC platform. Bit of an improvement there from Tom Churchhouse, 7th quickest so far. So Tom only finding a small chunk of time. Relatively new to the VRRC is Tom. He's been racing in our World Endurance League, and is not yet perhaps showing us exactly what he's capable of. I think he will get quicker as the season goes on, although top 7 in what is a stacked grid. 27 drivers entered for this opening round, which has got to be one of our biggest 27 cars on the grid for a long time, if ever. So yeah, really nice to see the VRRC is going places. It's popular, and this mini championship certainly capturing people's attention.
Say catapulting there, but Alok Irongold's catapulted up from the lower depths up into 15th place. I know Alok from racing Formula Jedi back in the day. I haven't caught up with him, but I did send him a message on Facebook, but he doesn't answer Facebook. So if he watches this back or he's listening, Alok, get on there and send us a message. We'll get some gossip over the course of the 6 rounds that I can do. There he is. Very handy pedal actually in single seaters. So and. I think came in for a bit of coaching if Rich Hayden's kind of the conversation with Rich earlier on in the week as it was coming in. But this is actually a highly competitive chat. I know I'm sure a couple of drivers will drop out as we move on as ever they do, but this is very competitive. Great drivers out there, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely, and a nice mix of regulars from within the VRRC and completely new names. And Thomas Potter, for example, a name that I've not come across before. He's just moved up to 11th place, about half a tenth slower than John Higgins, who completes the top 10. But yeah, nice to see lots of new names coming in, and fascinating for me, who I've been here with VRRC for a couple of years now, to see how they stack up against the Joel Lasks, Taylors, and Carl Felverses of the world, who every championship we run, really, they're the kind of drivers we expect to see setting the pace, and that has been the case so far. This is also a driver, I think, Richard, worth keeping an eye on. Andy Carroll, very handy in front-wheel drive. Every touring car championship we have, he's right up there. Perhaps not the fastest, but always sort of knocking on the door of top fives and podiums, and look at him, he's 6th fastest so far.
Yeah, I'll tell you, where's this session gone? We've only got 3 minutes 55 left. So yeah, Andy Carroll running there. He's the guy that gave us our guided tour with Andy in our video lap to get us underway. To 7th, Laskin, Taylor, Felver still there. Josh Martin, which is definitely a name I remember. We did when we were in lockdown and did the previous mini series, which I worked on, we interviewed some of the drivers in between rounds. A little bit of an off there for Andy, so not going to be Stato's fastest lap. Excuse me, but yeah, Josh Martin was one of the drivers we interviewed, and maybe we'll do that before the end of the run if Rich can nag me about that. We'll have a chat with, maybe talk a little bit more about sponsors and that, for some midweek entertainment.
Yeah, no, he's a fantastic character, is Josh Martin, and nice to see a return to form as well. 4th quickest at the moment now. He was a champion a couple of touring car championships ago, getting on for 12 months ago now, actually. Josh Martin was a champion with us, and for whatever reason, then just wasn't quite able to recreate that form. But yeah, up inside the top 4 now, which is good to see. Chris Blakey, another driver who's been getting faster and faster over the last couple of championships. He's up in 8th position. John Higgins has improved to 9th, and that means that Craig Curtis did complete the top 10, but Craig has just gone 7th, and in fact an improvement for Josh Martin again, who's broken into the top 3. I've also missed there, Richard, the fact that Nicky Taylor has improved. He stayed 2nd, but he's now within a 10th of Joel Lask, so that nice little margin that Joel had a little while ago has not quite been overturned, but it is getting eroded slightly.
Yeah, Nicky Taylor, do you know what? I mean, always fantastic to see him get his first win in the Real World Championship, and it just underlines to me how important it is that these youngsters now get the sim practice in as well. And he's good in both disciplines, Nicky Taylor. Really, really good, gritty driver. I don't know what he's doing this year. I haven't had the official announcement yet. I think he was alluding in the driver notes that he might be doing challenge again. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because he's a great peddler in it, and he'll be up at the sharp end, whoever comes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on. I think that is probably his plan, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that, rather than rushing on to the next level of your racing career. Sort of establish yourself where you are, become a regular winner, win a championship, and move on from there. But right now, Nicky focusing on trying to improve in this session. Josh Martin, though, has gone fastest of anybody in the middle sector, 3rd quickest at the moment, comes across the line. Is this enough for the front row? Well, the answer in the end is no. It was a 1:14.849. His previous best, a 1:14.845. So by 0.04 of a second, he failed to improve, but he needed more than that anyway to break onto that front row.
Yeah, it's not far away, and as long as you're up in the mix, in the top 6 or so, that's going to be good for them. We've got reverse grid races, which I guess everybody knows about. If we've got any new viewers, there is a lot of ballast, isn't there, being thrown around?
Yes, there is, although less so for this round, because it's the first round of the championship. 2 different types of ballast. So there is the championship ballast, which works as you would expect. If you're doing well in the championship, you carry some weight, if you're in the top 5 to be precise, and if you're not doing so well, then you lose that ballast within your car. But then there's also the driver ranking ballast, if you like, which is a VRRC idea, and that basically takes into account all of your results within the VRRC across its various championships and competitions. And if you are a regular front runner, then you end up carrying a little bit of ballast there. So 50% of the ballast allocation comes from the VRRC ballast system, and the other 50% comes from the championship ballast. So there are no really heavy cars out there tonight, because we don't have championship ballast yet, but from round 2 in a week's time, that's definitely something worth considering.
It is. It's a really good idea, and if there are any bad boys in terms of contact, they get ballast as well for that. So everyone will be looking to behave themselves. And Rich Hayden, no doubt, will have to scan the videos pretty much full time till next week. It's funny, isn't it, how sim racing clerking seems to be mirroring real world clerking now. It can virtually be a full-time job.
Yeah, sort of has to be, I think, doesn't it, really? Because especially with this many drivers and, the racing can get a bit lively, particularly the reversed grids, because it's a full reverse grid. None of this, half-hearted top 8, top 10, top 12. Anyone who finishes on the lead lap gets inverted to create the grid for race number 2. So if you could realistically finish 25th, 26th place and suddenly find yourself on the front row. So yeah, that definitely can cause a little bit of action in the second race of the evening, but hopefully not too much of that tonight. The checkered flag is out though, Richard, and for third place, a late improvement.
There was Brad Smith. Just as I was writing them down, they always do this. If you start to scribble out a grid, it's Brad Smith that sneaks up onto row 2. He was running in 5th position, so a superb last lap. And you could say getting warmed up here is absolutely, drivers do get into a groove, they get into the rhythm, they warm up. And that's exactly what Brad Smith is doing. Has he reached his peak, though? We'll see when we get to the race. But P3 for Brad Smith behind poleman Joel Lask and Nicky Taylor in 4th. Sorry, Josh Martin in 4th.
It is indeed. So we will hear from our pole sitter in a moment or two. Don't go anywhere. Race 1 coming your way.
Okay, Joel, last well done. Congratulations on getting pole, mate. It's Richard here in the commentary booth, the virtual commentary booth. Congratulations. Good way to start things off for this championship.
Yeah, just a little bit. It was a bit hairy. A lot of the guys are much quicker than they were in practice. Probably left a little bit of time on the table, but we just wanted to get that solid quali lap in, just to put it on the front row.
Have you done much, testing? What's your regime over the weeks? I mean, do you prepare specifically for this competition, or are you just on the sims all the time?
On the sims all the time, but I mean, yeah, specifically practice for this one. The cars were a bit of an art here, I think. Probably not. I don't know. I did around 700 laps, so that probably has helped quite a bit. But no, it's definitely one of these ones where you can make time very quickly, but you can also lose it very quickly as well. So sort of it's key just to get that lap in.
Okay, and how did you approach qualifying? I mean, is it just a continuation of the work you've been doing over the week?
Yeah, I mean there was a few discussions around whether we should fuel to the end of quali, just because it was going to be so busy out on track and it was going to be a struggle to get out. But we went with the lesser and ran a bit less fuel, and then just hoped that we could make it back out. I mean, yeah, we were just trying to get that quali lap in, and for the first couple of laps it was a little bit twitchy, but just managed to nail one down.
That's good. And you got Nicky Taylor alongside you, and then Brad Smith behind you. What are your thoughts on those guys?
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting. First corner should be a bit of a gamble, I suppose. But if we can hold it through there, then realistically, it's quite difficult to overtake around this track unless you've got quite a bit of a pace advantage. Me and Nicky have both got ballast as well, so we should be on a bit of a level playing field here. So just I guess it's who's got the faster race pace.
Overtaking goes on to race 2, doesn't it? Because it's reverse grid, so you've got to really get what you can out of race 1. And what would be your expectation for if you were to win this, starting off the back for race 2? What would be your expectation in terms of places made?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough one because this is the biggest grid that we've had yet. I think there's 18, 19 people that are within 8 tenths of pole. So I think if you don't make your way through the pack quickly, you're slowly gonna lose them. So I think it's just a case of just picking, yeah, just sort of send the moves where you can, but obviously be picky around which ones you're sending and when, I suppose, because the last thing you want is to make a collision with someone and get involved in a big crash. So yeah, just have to be careful, I think, to try and pick a way through.
Forgive me for making a real world analogy, but with the real world, everyone gets to know who they're racing against, and they kind of know how much space they can give each other. Do you build those sorts of relationships within sim racing?
I think a few people might say otherwise, but no, for the most, I mean, I've had some close battles over the time, and I think a lot of these people have. There's a few people here, well, quite a few people obviously I haven't raced with before. So it's one of those ones you're just going to have to put your faith in them to make sure that they're keeping an eye out and giving you the room when it's needed. So all we can do is see. Let's see how race one goes first, I suppose.
Okay. Do you need much prep time? Do you need us to shut up now?
No, all good. We're all good.
Sandy, I don't quite know how we're going on time at the moment, but good to catch up. Good to catch up with you. Wish you the best of
Yep.
luck for the race, Joel. We might speak to you on the podium.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's about the chattiest that we've heard, Joel, in a while. So you were doing something right there, Rich. We'll let him get on with his.
Steve Ryder always says there's no such thing as a bad answer, only bad questions. So maybe I've done something right. I don't know.
The implication being I've been doing something wrong, but we'll gloss
No,
over that. What I do want to talk about is the World Endurance League, which we kicked off with a few weeks ago. We've had our opening 2 rounds. This is running all year long, right into early October. So between each Sprint Racing Championship, we're running 2 90-minute races for GT3 class cars. So the next 2 rounds will follow the Mini Championship. We're at Spa and then Le Mans, the full circuit used for the 24-hour circuit. 24-hour race, I should say, on April the 24th. Then we will be in Sao Paulo and COTA for the next 2 rounds before it all rounds out in Fuji in Japan and Bahrain for the last 2 rounds of the championship, loosely following, I believe, the Real World Endurance Championship calendar. And of course, we also have this to look forward to, Rich.
Absolutely right. A little bit of sim racing truck-wise, and probably great to have the Smiths in. Is it the same drivers that normally come into it? Trucks are totally different kettle of fish, and the great thing about sim truck racing is we don't have to wait all afternoon for the barriers to be repaired. Nürburgring kicks it off, Zolder for round 2 in Belgium, and the Le Mans Bugatti circuit for round 3. So yeah, if you like your truck racing and you don't like delays, come and watch it with VRRC.
Oh, I'm sold already, Richard, just based on that. And that's taking place, I believe, on Sundays, I seem to recall as well. So a little bit of a weekend sim racing for you. Then we've also got our ongoing time attack. We're on round 2 of the time attack competition at the moment, started a couple of days ago. So we're in Las Vegas and we are in the GT3 specification Aston Martin. And this is very much a GT flavour for the time attacks. After this, we go to Spa in the BMW M2 GT2 and then the Porsche 911 GT1 at, again, the Circuit de la Sarthe in Le Mans. Fastest time wins. There are prizes for, I believe, the top 5 fastest times, and you can join those servers anytime you please. And we also have the Mirror League as well, which is coming up. This is for the single-seater fans among us, Richard. 12 rounds, and again, some great tracks here. Single-seat racing in the sim, a very different proposition, I can tell you, from what we're about to see in the minis.
Yeah, absolutely right. And yeah, so it's a good range of competitions that people can get involved with. Again, if we've got a lot of new people maybe joining us, then you know, get involved. Get involved as a viewer, or indeed come in as a championship runner.
Indeed so. Right then, race 1 on its way, just on the other side of this quick break.
Welcome back, Camus Race 1, the Camus Mini JCW Cup powered by Phoenix Racing, about to get underway. Richard John Neal with Andy McEwen. And this is a familiar view, isn't it, Andy, of that we get when we are watching racing either from the commentary box or for TV coverage. And it's a great view.
It is one of the iconic views, really, in British motorsport, that head-on shot as they barrel towards you into Redgate Corner. And the immersion is something that really took me by surprise, Richard, when I first started doing a lot of sim racing commentary a while ago. You really do sometimes forget that you're watching virtual cars around a virtual racetrack. Obviously, the advancements of the graphics and the car models and the physics models really help to immerse you. But then when the level of competition is as high as I think it's likely to be tonight, it really is easy to get carried away and forget that it's not real. But then the competition is real, the racing is real, and I can assure you that the driver's desire to win, that's very real indeed.
Yeah, all athletes, they really are, because they concentrate on fitness, they concentrate on practice. As you heard from Joel, the amount of time that the poleman has put in, absolute commitment from all of these guys as we get ready for the start of the first of 16 races. Remember, we're at Silverstone next time, Castlecombe, Alton Park, Croft, Anglesey, Thruxton, and winding up at Brands Hatch. We're really nearly ready to go with Joel Lasker pole. Nicky Taylor alongside. The lights are on. Row 2, Brad Smith and Josh Martin. Here come the lights. It's all going to be about that run down into Redgate Corner. The lights are out. We are racing. Camus Mini JCW Cup powered by Phoenix. It's a great start from the pole position man, Joel Lask, and slotting into second position is Nicky Taylor. Then we've got the two green machines of Brad Smith and Josh Martin hassling as well. Everybody, I think, made it around turn one safe and well. Having said that, there's a little bit of a scuffle down behind the logos.
Yeah, and unfortunately, young Thomas Potter, 12-year-old Thomas Potter, one of those off the road. Kenny Press as well, so one or two of them getting caught up at Redgate, and someone taking a very agricultural line through Hollywood, and now two more cars, three more cars sideways down the hill, and that is going to cause absolute carnage down at the old hairpin. Julian Almondy is one of them. The other one was Walton as well, I believe, wasn't it? Sam Walton. So a few drivers in trouble in the early stages. At the front of the pack, though, Richard, they're continuing very much undeterred.
Yeah, Brad Smith has got up into second position, just nipping through into third place. There is Josh Martin. So Josh has made a move into third, dicing it out at the moment with Kyle Felvers. And on the outside, it's Nicky Taylor. But I tell you what, super stuff from Joel Lask, who's actually got a little bit of a lead as he comes into the game for the first time. Brad Smith in the 69 in second position. But it's a lap led for Joel Lask, who crosses the line from Brad Smith, with Nicky Taylor about to reclaim on the outside run for third position from Josh Martin. They're side by side as we look at Brad Smith in second place. The gap as they're going to cross the line. Let's see if I can spot that on the, it was 0.973 seconds. So we'll need to keep an eye on that as the race continues. But I've got to say, Joel Lass looking very comfortable out front.
Yeah, confident on cold tyres, isn't he now? There is a little bit that you can do setup-wise, but it's a generally pretty fixed setup, so there's not a lot you can do to tweak the car. It's possible maybe with tyre pressures, things like that, that he's gone for quite an aggressive short-run car, and maybe we'll worry about tyre management a bit more later on. Josh Martin, meanwhile, being harried here by Tom Churchhouse, who, remember, started on the fourth row, I seem to recall. Well, now he's challenging Josh Smith as they head for Coppice Corner, but the outside line, actually the quicker way into that corner, really, in a front-wheel drive car. And so Josh Martin stays ahead. Churchhouse understeers wide and opens the door for famed front-wheel drive hater Kyle Felvers.
Well, he says that, as you say, but you know, he's certainly got some talent, and he's not far away from some really decent points at the moment. But Churchhouse has got the better of him at the moment, as completing lap 2 of this 25-minute race is Joel Lask, and he's crossed the line now. The gap has gone out just a shade over Brad Smith in second position, but things start to settle down, don't they? And we were talking about safety cars. You might ask about whether we would have had a virtual safety car. I think that's something that's coming in later round, so that will be something if we've got people stranded, virtually or otherwise, that will happen for later rounds. But for this one, not the case, as Churchhouse tries to close in on Martin.
Yeah, well, the good news is that despite all of the shenanigans on lap 1, everyone's still running, although as I say that, Alok Iyengar dives for the pit lane, perhaps for repairs. Remember, as long as you finish on the lead lap at the end of this first race, you will be eligible for the reversed grid. There is Iyengar in the pit lane, and his virtual pit crew will go to work, hopefully not for too much longer, because it's quite a short lap here at Donington Park, only a minute and a quarter or so, and so he needs to hurry if he's going to get back on track without losing that all-important lap. The leaders, though, head down towards the chicane. Brad Smith actually has set the fastest lap of the race last time round. He was purple in the middle sector. Nicky Taylor fastest in the first sector. So Joel Lask has not got this one in the bag just yet.
No, he hasn't. Keep your eye on Nicky Taylor because they all know they've got the tie. I love the way they just dive over that pit lane exit to get the wide line. And the times, by the way, in case you're wondering, are actually comparable with the real-world JCWs. Dan Zelos qualifying time was a 1 minute 12 last year, which was exceptional, but race-wise you're looking at 1:12s or 13s. I think Will Orton did a 1:14 as the fastest lap, and that's the fastest lap, remember, in the real world for race 3 on the national circuit last year. It wasn't the happiest of rounds for us in the real world, but so we won't dwell on that. We will, though, on this race leader, Joel Lass, doing a super job out front at the moment, but and the great thing about reverse grid racing is we'll see him have to do a hell of a lot more work a little bit later on.
Yeah, absolutely, and we always say that that's where championships are won and lost, really, in the reversed grid races, because generally in race 1, the quick drivers, they all sort of qualify towards the front. They usually are able to fill out the top 5 or 6 positions, but in race 2, it's very easy for them to get separated. And there are certain drivers, Joel Lask and Carl Felbus particularly spring to mind, who really do excel in those reverse grid races and excel at gaining track position in a hurry and generally staying out of trouble as well. But yeah, speaking of gaining track position, I mentioned, Richard, that on lap 1, Thomas Potter was in a bit of strife. Well, he's back into the top 20 now, youngest driver on the grid by quite some way, but I think he's actually got some good pace.
Yeah, the Flying Tea Potter. We could, you won't know that album. It was an album by Gong in the early 70s, and I still need to speak to you about music because you did a post. We'll come back to that and forget about that. But yeah, it's absolutely incredible to have that youngster. There he is, racing, and this is going to set him up so well for whatever awaits him. I don't think he's even able to do any of the junior scholarships.
No.
12.
No, too young, 12 years old. But that, again, is one of the great things about sim racing, isn't it, Richard? You're never too young to come and sim race at a professional level. So, you know, you really can start young. That's Chris Blakey going grass tracking. That was not the ideal line through McLean's, Richard.
No, Nathan Smith with the blue mirrors just nips down the inside, making the most of that. You used to get mentions. We used to get vouchers for Demon Tweaks mentions, didn't you? Or photographs in the period. It was back in the day, and we tried when TV coverage was stepping up a little bit to try and get them extra vouchers, but they weren't having any of it. And I'll tell you what, the Demon Tweaks car's gone back through. So very neat move there by Chris Blakey.
Yeah, Chris Blakey not wanting to give that place up without a fight. That was Adam Lyle exiting stage left. You don't tend to end up in that position, Richard, unaided. So I wonder whether maybe that was an attempted overtake gone wrong. But poor Adam Lyle.
Go on. You're much better at spotting these guys at the moment. So do you know who's behind?
Yeah, who was behind Adam? I think he was battling either Paul Laramie or Johnny Ogden. I think he was somewhere just outside the top 10, but no more.
Well, it'll be looked at if there's something that needs to be done as we watch Nicky Taylor, I think, closing in on Brad Smith at the moment. And as I say, it's absolutely brilliant to be calling a race with Nicky Taylor on screen virtually. Really good stuff to see. It was when we were looking at Carroll earlier on, I was just seeing behind him we've got John Higgins. He was a very late entrant. It was only this morning I think he saw my social media post, or his dad did. And he signed up sort of late doors. I think it's a pretty much full grid, but it is good to have new drivers in, isn't it? Like, you know, part of the Mazda paddock we were talking about earlier on.
See, this is the kind of pull that you have, Richard. Just a simple social media post. And you've helped to bolster the grid. We really are happy to have you on board. I'm sure Rich Aiden is, certainly. But yeah, good to have him on board. And yeah, an engineer, I believe, for one of the big Mazda MX-5 racing teams in the UK and a racing family in general. And no real surprise to see that he can turn his hand to the old sim racing pretty well. Good battle developing here, Richard, for 6th place. Craig Curtis having a really good run. but having qualified towards the back end of the top 10, he's gained some ground in the early stages, but now desperately trying to hang on to it with Tom Churchhouse and Andy Carroll looking ever more of a threat behind him.
So that Primex logo, that's Hyro Motorsport, that's Max Coates, isn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll be seeing Max over the next couple of days, and good to see that level. Not sure what Max is up to this year, but he's racing in the Caymans now as they go side by side, and Churchhouse makes the move, goes through on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, does that open the door for Andy Carroll as well? I think Andy's going to have a bit of an overlap here against Craig Curtis, who snatched a break, actually, going into Coppice Corner with Churchhouse up the inside. Carroll has an overlap, but is he late enough on the brakes into the chicane? No, very late on the brakes goes Craig Curtis. A bit too late, though. That's going to hamper his exit speed, and Andy Carroll will once more get the run. John Higgins taking advantage of this to close the gap as well. And then it's Chris Blakey and Brad Smith, who we saw battling earlier on. They settle back in line, single file though, heading through Redgate Corner and continue on their way down the hill. Not missing anything out in front, still 1.4 seconds between Lask and Smith. Nicky Taylor looking more of a threat now, I would say. Looking at that timing tower, Richard, that gap second to third creeping down a little.
Yeah, my own timing table has disappeared at the moment, so let's just flick that back on. There we go, we're back up and running. But yeah, Smith and Taylor. Be good news for Lask, wouldn't it, if Taylor and Smith get sort of stuck in with each other. Martin's not that far away as well. This could play very much for the race leader, because if they all start squabbling, you know the story, it means the race leader can get away. What we ideally want is 4 cars perhaps squabbling over the lead, and it could work that way, but at the moment it looks like second, third and fourth are more likely to get involved with each other.
Yeah, Josh Martin definitely closing in, isn't he? It's so nice to see Josh Martin back at the front end of the grid. To be fair, we had glimpses of this in the opening 2 rounds of the World Endurance League. Josh, what are you doing? Every time I start complimenting Josh Martin's driving, he suddenly finds himself off in the weeds, and all of that time he'd gained, Richard, has gone again.
The curse of McEwen.
It's a real thing, I assure you.
It happens to us all so much.
Oh.
Oh, Felderson pits.
Yeah, that's big news, Richard. An expected front runner in this championship, Carl Felvis.
Yeah, what you don't want is your dropped event at event 1, do you, particularly?
No, not at all. Pressure's on then, isn't it? Rest of the season, you can't really afford another bad result.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a shame, isn't it? But the Churchhouse now 5th, Curtis 6th, Carroll 7th, Higgins up to 8th, Blakey 9th, and then the first of our the Smiths in the first of the family Smith in 10th position, with Lauren 11th and Johnny Ogden in 12th place at the moment, with 14 minutes just under remaining in our first race of the season.
I would like, if I may, to pass some of the blame for Josh Martin's recent moment on to his usual teammate here at the VRRC, Eric Axelsson, the Swedish assassin, as we call him, former champion at the VRRC, who just at the moment that Josh went off the road had also been putting words of encouragement in the YouTube chat. So, Eric, we're passing the blame on to you a little bit for that one. And a shame not to have Eric out on the grid for the minis, but he's been a front runner in the World Endurance League as well. Josh, I think just trying to get back into the rhythm now and really hoping that these two start to knock lumps out of each other, because Brad Smith and Nicky Taylor up the road, if they start battling, that could really be Josh Martin's only invitation back into the fight. I say that, we're only actually a third of the way through this race, Richard, so plenty of time to go.
There is, yeah. We said overtaking was going to be a premium, but at the front, getting close is a premium, isn't it, at the moment? But yeah, Nicky Taylor is still trying to work hard and close down. As you said in the lap run through, Donington Park is just such a wonderful circuit, and it's a real test of drivers who's got so much to offer everybody, plus spectators for real as well. Great day out for people to go and enjoy a fantastic venue, and one that you really should walk all the way around if you've not been to before. Taylor now trying to get into the toe and close down. This is Taylor definitely getting closer. We've got a battle on now for second place.
Yeah, Nicky's going to really be incentivised here to try and find a way past Brad, because actually Joel Lask is only a second and a half up the road, and Nicky Taylor, he'll be feeling that maybe he's got the pace to close that down. His fastest lap, Nicky Taylor this is only fractionally, a couple of hundredths slower than Joel Lask's fastest lap, and they're currently running within a tenth or so of each other as well. So Nicky will probably feel that if he got some clean air here, might be able to chase down the race leader. If nothing else, he wants to try and bank the points if he can. A bit of change further back as well. John Higgins and Andy Carroll, both ahead of Craig Curtis, Richard.
Yeah, a lot of place changes going on, and John Higgins Jr. up into 6th position. So, debut in this competition. Is it, I think, VRRC debut as well, because we pointed him at where to find the specs and everything. So, good stuff from him. There is Carroll in the 76. Higgins immediately in front, and John Higgins Jr. John, multiple champion in Legends cars over the years. I think has all of the career records in terms of race wins, percentage wins, and everything. Last year's champion actually asked me to dig out some stats because he thought he was going to be the best driver in terms of stats. But when he looked, actually, it was his dad that asked me for the stats. And when they looked at John Higgins Senior's stats, they said, "Oh, okay, we might need to rethink that." But good to see Junior out there, and he's obviously picked up some of the genes. A good battle going on between Higgins and Carroll. Carroll in the grey liver as we look at it, giving him a little bit of a chase here. Those two clear on their own. So this battle, I tell you what, Carroll looks like he's going to be well placed here to put in a challenge, if not make it past. Maybe down at the old hairpin.
Yeah, Carroll looking racy, isn't he? 11 laps in, so we're starting now maybe to get into the realms of tyre management coming into play. These being front-wheel drive cars, they do wear out those front tyres reasonably quickly, and Donington National, quite a high average speed, and most of the corners are right-handers. The only time you're really turning left is, through the Crater curves. That doesn't really count. Starkeys and Schwantz, that's not really taking too much out of the tyres either. So all of the other corners, these long, medium to high-speed right-handers, they punish that left front. And it's been reported through all of the tens of thousands of practice laps cumulatively that have been logged pre-event, that about 10 or 11 laps in is when you really start to feel it. So, we're only halfway through this race, Richard. There is time yet for the dynamic to shift, and for drivers who perhaps have looked strong in the early stages, we'll find out now whether they've been looking after their virtual rubber and whether they're going to continue that pace to the flag.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's all about setup, it's mindset as well as anything else. And well, you say that, but when the drivers go out there, they're just going to probably hammer it all the way through. Higgins just a little bit settled at the moment. So Brad Smith, very definitely now, you're looking in his metaphorical mirrors at Nicky Taylor, and Nicky Taylor has been in this position many, many times for real and knows how to apply pressure without getting into the tactics of going into the back of the car. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but no, Nicky will, and the alarm company machine, drive smoothly and safely and just try to pick his moment. Good championship points in the offing at the moment, and this is good pressure, very good pressure indeed from him.
Yeah, Nicky has made no secret of the fact that he has absolutely targeted the championship victory this time. I know that all of the drivers want to try and win the championship, but Nicky knows it's well within his grasp. This, he has got the capability to be the champion, and he knows that to do that, he's got to bank points right from the start. And we saw that from Carl Felvers in our most recent championship, that he was victorious in, scoring points from round one, having this idea of, what sort of points haul you want from each and every round and just working to that number. That's the best way sometimes to go about it. Nicky, though, didn't get a great run off the chicane there, so Brad Smith, for now, doesn't feel the need to defend, and that is the key, isn't it, Richard? Especially around a circuit, a momentum-based circuit like Donington. As soon as you start to defend, in a way, that can sometimes be your undoing.
Yeah, very definitely. And Brad Smith maybe not feeling he's got to do too much of that. He's just sticking his laps together, doing a super job. Remember, qualified third, so he's in his head got one at the moment over Nicky Taylor. Nicky not as close as he was on the previous lap. Nicky's going to have to watch for Josh Martin at the moment, running where he started fourth on the grid, and not far away from this battle. You've got to say the lead is fairly well sorted. 2.2 seconds the gap between first and second, and I've got to say it looks like we might be having a chat with Joel again by the end of this. We've still got 7 minutes 35 to go. We lost Carl Felvers, remember, that was a big shot. We could still lose the race leader, so I don't want to put the curse of the commentator on him, but lead looks settled. Second, third and fourth, I think, still to play for.
Yeah, 3 drivers no longer running. Alok Iyengar never did rejoin from the pit lane. Adam Lyle was last seen heading at high speed towards barrier at the chicane, and Kyle Felvers, as we said, in the pit. So that's doubly bad news for Kyle. A non-score in this race, and he'll be off the back of the grid in race number 2. Granted, just behind the front runners from race 1, but that is not what he wanted at all to start his championship campaign. On board with Nicky Taylor then, down through the Crater curves. Let's see if we can see any sign maybe of a bit more understeer creeping in, just having to put a bit more steering lock in maybe to get the car into the old hairpin. That's a sign that the front tyres are starting to scream enough, and then can't really get on the power as early as he'd like off the corner. McLean's is another corner where that understeer can sometimes creep in. Actually gets good rotation into the corner, so I don't think he's struggling too much, but these two are just so evenly matched, Richard, that neither of them can afford to put a foot wrong. And I think if Nicky, he perhaps had a little mistake a lap or so ago at the chicane, dropped those few car lengths and just can't get them back.
Absolutely right, and it's cat and mouse between the two of them. I remember calling some of the Clio Cup races for real back in the day, and you'd see what some people would maybe term as a procession. Here's the factory looking at Nicky trying to close in. But processions are often very far from that because they're drivers matching each other lap after lap. That's the sort of thing you've got to take from that. Not the fact that there isn't overtaking, but that these drivers are on a limit.
And with that in mind, the last thing he wants to see really is a back marker on the horizon. It's one of the many Smiths. It is Matt Smith, I believe. Who?
As my son said, I said Matt Smith. Is it who?
Oh, very good. I was working out a way to slip that joke in, and you beat me to it, Richard.
Sorry, I'm sure he's fed up with that. Actually, good driving though. Look at that. Let the leader through. That is super driving by Matt Smith.
It is, actually, yes. Stays well out of the way, and then, of course, then finds himself on the racing line, so wanders over to the inside line instead. But yeah, doing everything he can to get out of the way. It is expected within the VRRC that if you're being lapped, you don't make life too difficult for the lead lap cars, and Matt Smith certainly not falling foul of that rule.
No, very, very good indeed. No problem for the leaders, and Joel Lask is still there. I need to ask where he comes from, whether it's Lask or Lask. We're being posh. It is Lask. Where's he from? Cambridge. It could be Lask. Cambridge is posher than up north. So,
I beg your pardon, Richard.
I'll ask him. But yeah, so he's down front. Smith second, so is third, and I've probably offended half the audience now.
And half the commentary team as well with it. 1.7 seconds the gap at the front of the field, and Joel, however you say his last name, is perhaps starting now to feel a bit of pressure, although Nicky Taylor and Brad Smith still a little preoccupied with each other, I think. 3.5 minutes to go, Richard. I don't think Joel is going to be sweating too much, but it does just seem, perhaps, and we can ask him about this hopefully post-race, that maybe he did go for some sort of tyre pressure setup that favoured the early laps at the expense of long run pace, because he was off like a rocket at the start, and now in the second half of the race does seem to be a little more inconsistent.
Well, you say that, I think it's still pretty much there, isn't it? Only 3:11 to go, and we've not seen the gaps coming down. Top four, super drive by the top four. Tom Churchhouse still in 5th, John Higgins Jr. 6th. It's Carroll next up, and Blake Curtis. You can see that. Yeah, this is, if it was down to strategy, it's working very well for him. So setup has obviously worked well. He's not going to give you secrets away for race 2, but it's going to be interesting to see how these 4 pan out as they try and work their way through the grid, if they stay like this in race 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the early laps play out differently based on where you are up and down the grid, but sometimes we see these quick drivers all starting together at the back of the field, and 1 or 2 of them get straight through to the front, and then 1 or 2 of them don't. And like I said, that's what can really make a big difference in your championship prospects. Mark Stokes here, running 17th place, makes his way up the hill, and in fact, not far behind, we've got Stuart Henderson dropping down the order. I don't know if Stuart's just had a moment, but
I think they had a moment with each other, because this graphic came up on my timing screen, so they both had an accident.
Right, okay. Simultaneously, but maybe with each other, or perhaps just coincidentally timed. But yeah, that's a shame then. So he drops down the order, but further up the grid for the second race a little bit later on. We're on the penultimate lap, though, Richard, and still the focus, I think, has to be on this fight for second place, doesn't it?
Still there, Nicky Taylor might be timing this well, and timing, as you know, Andy, is absolutely key in some races. There's no doubt he is closing up. I'm sure Nicky will have one eye on the clock, but like most races, he'd rather be in front earlier and get away. So it could be about timing. It could just be, I think he made a little error there, just ran very, very tight to the curb there. He's still in with the shout. Lask about to go on to his final lap, and it is going to be Lask, isn't it, in terms of pronunciation. Brian Jones would have done Lask because Brian was properly spoken, unlike myself. So I think there we go. Last lap though, more traffic beckoning as well, but I don't think that is going to be an issue. The issue is for second. Nicky Taylor still closing up. Is he going to be able to wind himself up, get the momentum, maybe for the run into the chicane for the last time, or is he going to make a move before then? He is on the boot lid of the second place car.
Yeah, and flashing the lights at the second place car as well, which will, I'm sure, not convince Smith to get out of the way. But yeah, Nicky Taylor closer than ever now, down through the old hairpin. See the different approaches there. Smith carried more speed into the corner, but Nicky was therefore quicker on exit. And that's what I would be favouring. It's a long uphill drag now through Starkey's and Schwann's curve, where surely Smith will have to defend the inside line, which he does. But what did I say before? You defend here at Donington at your peril. And Nicky Taylor had so much more mid-corner speed, but ultimately, Richard, nowhere to go with it.
Yeah, I thought he was going to just get the momentum was stubbed out there, wasn't it, by the 69 car? And has he done enough to hold on? It's all about Taylor's run out of Coppice, down the exhibition straight for the last time. Is he close enough to make the move? Martin might be closing in too, but it's Joel Lask who isn't going to catch those cars. He is out front through the chicane for the last time. Virtual checker beckons for the man who took pole position, and he does the buzz the pit wall bit as well. Fair play to him. Lask takes the win. It's going to be Smith in second position, Nicky Taylor in third. Great race between those, and Josh Martin closing up on them for fourth position towards the end. The 88 car coming in fifth position, Tom Churchhouse ahead of John Higgins Jr. Then it was Chris Blakey. Followed. Did we get a roly-poly there?
We did. That was Jonathan Ogden finishing with a flourish, as they'd say.
He get across the line. He's showing red. No, he hasn't got across the line yet, has he? So very nearly, but it does actually finish, I think, in 16th place in the end, just behind Thomas Potter. So good recovery from Thomas Potter from his moment earlier on. Good first race, though, Andy. Lots to take away from that.
Indeed so, and we will be able to dissect it all with our top three drivers in just a couple of minutes' time with the post-race interviews. Then we get the madness of the Race 2 reversed grid with some drivers definitely keen, I think, to bounce back from a slightly disappointing first race. So yeah, don't go anywhere, everyone. Advert time, but after that we'll hear from our top three drivers.
So welcome back, and it's podium interview time. I think normally do it 1, 2, 3, but it's upside down now because I'm here. So I'm going to talk to the third place man first of all. Nicky Taylor. Nicky, are you there, fella?
I am. Sorry.
Nicky, well done on third position. A good attacking drive, and you were closing in, and then you dropped back a little bit, but pretty much harrying Brad Smith all the way through that race. Did it go to plan? Because you started off on the front row, so maybe talk us through things from the start.
Yeah, I mean the start was relatively decent. Like the actual pull away was fine. I got decent drive down to T1, and then I tried to slot in on the inside because I thought Joel would be the right person to get behind. And then yeah, Brad just got a slingshot around the outside and just managed to get through to P2 from there. So yeah, I was quite impressed with my race lap times because I wasn't expecting to do 14s in the race. But yeah, the times were there, and then with the 5 minutes left, my tyres were getting on their end of their life, and Brad was getting a bit slower, so I was gaining a bit. But yeah, he done well to hold off.
I was speculating it might be a little bit of timing from you. I know you guys want to get in front and never mind timing on last lap or anything else, but I was speculating you were closing in. I think you were as close as ever you were in the race over those last couple of laps. So clearly handling those tyres well.
Yeah, I mean it is front wheel drive and it is a mini, so I'm used to the car and used to how the tires feel and stuff. And when tires go off in a front wheel drive car, I know how it should feel and how it does feel. So I've got a bit of an edge with that, but yeah, I was just trying to set decent laps. Even when the tires started going off, I knew if I could do like a 15 dead, 15-1, it would still be competitive. So I knew the time was there and I knew I wasn't losing too much. But yeah, just needed to keep third. Didn't need to like attack that fully on Brad to get second, because at the end of the day, consistent points with 29 cars in a reverse or 28 cars in a reverse grid is going to be the key.
Okay, predictions for race 2?
I can see a podium, but it's going to be hard.
Ooh.
But I'll try and get a podium.
I know you're that kind of driver. We look forward to seeing you do that. So, Nikki, well done on the podium. Great to chat to you again. Look forward to seeing you in the real world as well. But we've got this series to go through before we do that. And second place interview, I think, is going to be with Andy.
Yeah, thanks very much, and congratulations, Nikki, on the podium finish there. Second place, though, and the man who had to spend most of that race really watching in his rearview mirrors was Brad Smith. Brad, very much, well, I was going to say a defensive driver. You weren't actually actively defending all that much until the closing stages, and I think that was probably quite an important reason as to why you were able to hang on to second place, would you say?
Has anyone got a spare towel? I need to mop some sweat up because that was ridiculous. After 2 years off with Nikki bothering me the whole race, that was not enjoyable. Let's just put it that way.
It's great to have you back. Some things never change, though, do they, Brad? Although, actually, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this because we've been saying all evening that the not only quantity of drivers on the grid these days with VRRC has improved, but the quality of drivers as well, the level of competition at the front of the field. It seems that much tighter than it once was, and I suppose you're in a great position to comment on that.
Yeah, I've been watching. I've not been racing. I've been watching pretty much every race, and I've seen everyone getting faster and faster. And thought I'm going to be mid-pack. Done quite a large amount of laps in practice. I only got a rig again just over a week ago, so I had to get some practice in. But I seem to be back where I was pretty quickly, so I'm happy with that.
Well, that makes that all the more impressive then, really, Brad. Second place, given the fact that, as you said, there's quite a lot of new that you're trying to sort of wrap your head around. But this is a form of racing and a type of car that we would expect to see you look fairly competitive in, and you've got to be satisfied with the fact that you have come in and sort of found that pace immediately. Do you think that maybe it is the fact that it's a front wheel drive tin top that naturally suits your driving style that's helped with that?
Honestly, I have no clue. I just get in the rig and drive around and somehow get a good lap. Joel asks me all the time. He's like, "How have you done that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, mate. I've just gone around the track and done it." Like with setups and stuff, I have no clue. That's all down to Joel, so I've got to thank him for that. It's all he's just pushed me and made me do this. So it's obviously working.
Certainly is. However, race 2 you can plan even less for, really, can't you, with the reversed grid? Is there a plan in place, or are you just going to keep driving around in circles and hope for the best?
As Joel says, I'm going to send it.
Excellent. Cameras trained on the back row of the grid then at the start of this second race. Brad, thanks for joining us. Best of luck for the second race coming up shortly.
Thank you very much.
That's Brad
Thanks,
Smith
Brad.
then, Richard. And now you have the chance to catch up with our race winner.
We do. I'm just going to backpedal a little bit before we go on to that and say that obviously in the notes, Brad was saying that he is the hottest male in the championship. And now we know it's because of the sweat that he was talking about. So if anyone has got a towel for him, as he alluded to at the start of that interview. Please supply that. But now we know what he means in terms of hottest driver. But it was the hottest driver out on track in terms of qualifying and race win. Lights out to flag Joel Lass. Congratulations, Joel. Nice to chat to you again. We did speculate we might on the podium. All to plan?
Yeah, to be fair, that probably couldn't have gone any better. Yeah, to be honest, a little worried about Nicky and him getting a good run at the start, but it seemed to go pretty well. And then from there, it was just managing the tyres because towards the end, like the ballast seems to play quite a big part. And those that aren't running any ballast obviously have got a little bit of an advantage. So yeah, it was just nurse the car around, just keep consistent, and yeah, all played out quite nicely.
Andy was speculating that you'd sort of gone for an earlier fast setup for the tyres and maybe having them go off quicker than some of the other drivers. Is that what you did?
I started wanting to set the quick laps to begin with, but then I've realised, how quickly these tyres will go off with the ballast. So I sort of tried to get that gap to begin with, because once you're out the toe, then that's half the battle. But then from that point on, it was just sort of keep coasting it round. I could see I was probably about 2/10 slower a lap probably than the guys behind, but I think just the fact those two were battling just made it a little bit easier, took the pressure off.
How much of a worry is it virtually when you get some back markers? I thought they behaved impeccably. We saw Matt Smith move well out of the way for you, but is that a concern? Does it? You obviously see them in front of you. How do you deal with that?
It's a bit of a tricky one because you don't know what someone's going to do, whether they're going to see you or not. You can give them a little flash of the lights, but that's pretty much it. You just got to hope and pray you can make it. So it is a little bit of a worry, but as a cracking bunch of guys here at VRRC, so yeah, everyone races fairly.
Absolutely brilliant. And in terms of going into race 2, obviously you might want to tweak things around. We won't ask you about specific tweaks because we don't want you giving it. Well, we do want you giving out your trade secrets, but you're not going to do that. How long does it take you to sort of feed in whatever you're doing to set yourself up for the second race?
Quite a lot. I mean, to be honest, it's not really going to be any different to race one. I'm just going to try and keep out of the way. There's usually a little bit of carnage the first couple of corners, so it's just seeing if we can capitalise on that, and then just try and pick people off one by one. But like I said, obviously everyone's pretty close in terms of times, and yeah, I think it's going to be a hard press to really make it up the field. I know Nicky was saying podium on the cards, but I mean he's a better man than I am for going for that. I'd like to say mid pack, maybe top 10, but we'll see how it goes.
I noticed you got the Phoenix livery on the side. Can you tell us a little bit about Phoenix?
Yeah. So powered by Phoenix Sim Racing, obviously Stu at the helm. Evan, massively appreciated to him. He's done a lot for this team and getting the guys together and racing with one another for disabilities and also in mental health as well. So yeah, big shout out to him. Yeah, because we wouldn't be on this grid without him. So yeah, props to him.
That's really good. Well, I'm going to let you get away and prep for race 2 this afternoon. I hope, or this evening. Best of luck with it, and thank you for chatting to us. And thanks to Brad Smith, and well done to Brad Smith and Nicky Taylor for completing our podium. And these guys, I'm just looking now. I think we've got now. If my timing screen is right, am I right, Rich Hayden, saying we've got Matt Smith on pole? Did he? Because he wasn't on the lead lap, was he? Oh yeah. With Julian Owandi next, Zamfir Radu next up from Sam Walton, Simon Thorpe, Stuart Henderson in 6th. Kenny Press will line up 7th from Mark Stokes, Johnny Ogden, and Thomas Potter in 10th place, then Lee Piercy and Sam Milner. So it's going to be plenty to play for as we head towards race 2.
Yeah, looking forward to this one, definitely. It's going to be a chaotic opening for you callers, but typically after that it sort of settles down and there will inevitably be one quick driver who breaks through to the front a little bit sooner than some of the others, and that tends to give them the advantage, really. So it'll be interesting to see who that is. Obviously, the likes of Lask, Smith, Taylor, Josh Martin coming from outside the top 20 have their work cut out, and also keep an eye on Kyle Felvers, who's back there with them. I mean, he would have expected to be back there with them on the grid, but not as a result of a non-finish in round 1. So he's got a bit of a point to prove. Obviously, drop scores this round is likely to become his drop score, but he still wants to bank some points just in case he has another night where things don't quite go to plan.
Yeah, absolutely right. He's definitely going to have to do some work from back there. So this is going to be interesting. We've got the likes of Alok, who had a pit stop, didn't he, in the race as well. Adam Lyle having problems too. and our winner starting 23rd. So bags of work. It was interesting to hear the difference between our race winner Joel Lask and Nicky Taylor. Nicky, as you heard, saying that he was bullish about getting up onto a podium. Joel Lask less so. It'll be just fascinating to see where they go. Lights are on though, sequence underway, 5 lights on, and we wait for the start of race 2. Matt Smith starting on pole position this time. Some good driving from him, race number 1. And it's Julian Owandi, I think, who's got the better start. Matt a little bit slow away, but this is new territory for him. And it's Julian that's going to lead them down into Redgate Corner for the first time. This is the nail-biting moment, Andy McEwen. And already it is all sorts of problems with cars going every which way, still going and sorting themselves out. I tell you what, I think that could have been a lot worse.
I absolutely agree with you. Unfortunately, Thomas Potter involved in all of that again for the second race in a row. We've got one of the Smiths towards the tail end of the grid, 2. John Jones, Chris Blakey was caught up in it. I saw Andy Carroll sustaining some contact, but actually a cleaner run through the first half of the lap than it was in race 1, because they've all got through the craters clearly this time. And it is Julian Owandi who leads the way. Henderson second, Stokes third, but I think Thorpe perhaps almost up the inside of him as they made their way up towards Coppice Corner. Who is making the best of the progress? Well, Josh Martin is 11th already, and I reckon that's Brad Smith trading 10th place with John Higgins, so they've definitely gained out of all of that.
That is absolutely mega, isn't it? Superb start. And where does Henderson come from? Because he wasn't in the first couple of rows, so really good start from him. Challenge on here for third place, and a little bit of a contact, and that pushes Simon Thorpe off onto the dirt and will recover, but potential podium down the Swanee for him. That will be looked at without a doubt, but it's Owandi leading from Henderson as they come down 3 wide for second place, passing the pit lane exit. They'll all want that bit of track on the outside, and it's Henderson going all over the place, going very wide there and putting the pressure on Owandi to try now as they go down through the Craner curves to get a moment in front. And this is great for us because we get to see different drivers. Good run here. Was there a tag there? Looked like it.
A little bit of an assist maybe at the apex. Didn't really hurt Owandi though, did it? Henderson just sort of transferring some of his momentum upon the car in front, shall we say. But the gap actually opens out between them slightly. Kenny Press up into third place. He's done well out of all of this. But there, look, the green car, Josh Martin, into 6th position. So Josh Martin is ahead of Brad Smith now. He was a couple of places behind Brad when I last noticed. And now he's ahead of him. There goes Brad Smith right on his tail. So 2 of the top 4 finishers from race 1, Richard, already well inside the top 10. Josh Martin's in the top 5.
Nathan Smith in the mix as well. Yeah, Josh Martin. You know what happened last time you bigged him up though, Andy McEwen? And now we've got Smith about to be passed. Is he going to be? Jonathan Ogden getting stuck in as well. Are we going to see a change for the lead? Henderson makes it through. So Henderson into the race leader. Owandi down to the second place. Those guys clear at the moment. Kenny Press is in third. John Higgins is looking on the outside in the white and green car. There is Josh Martin in P5. Massive bun fight going on mid-order at the moment. And let's just have a look. Nicky Taylor 12th at the moment. Adam Carroll, that's a GT racing for you. Andy Carroll further back. And Carl Felber's not in the mix at all, which is disappointing. But Henderson out front at the moment, and we'll try it, make a little bit of hay here while the sun shines.
Change for third as well. John Higgins up past Kenny Press, made that move coming through Hollywood, so have to assume a better exit maybe from Redgate Corner. Joel Lask, meanwhile, up into 8th, so he's just got ahead of Johnny Ogden, bringing Nicky Taylor with him. So Lask and Taylor, interestingly, haven't made the sort of progress that we perhaps expected to see from them. Now, I noticed we only have 26 cars running in this race. We should have had 27, and I think the 27th was Kyle Felvers. I don't see his name anywhere on that timing tower as Andy Carroll suddenly is on the grass. That looked like maybe a hardware failure for him, and he is well off the road as well. But yeah, possibly we are minus.
He's coming under a wee bit of pressure, or is he putting it on? He's looking around the outside line, and he's, I think, going to take second. He does. So with Higgins putting the pressure on, so up into a podium position in his first race meeting with us. Henderson still out front. Higgins there in the 16 is P2. Now, bear in mind, he was at the sharp end in race number 1. It's going to be a very good points haul if things stay like this for John Higgins Jr.
Yes, let's hope so. He's got decent pace, I think, hasn't he? And now he's got the trap position. He's not going to want to give that away without a fight. Josh Martin was up the inside of Julian Alwendy there in the background for third position. They're still door-to-door as they head for McLean's, but Martin on the outside line, and that is, well, that was Alwendy off the road. So I'm not sure what happened there, but the main headline, actually, is that Brad Smith has taken advantage to get to the inside of Josh Martin. This is a big moment in this race, Richard. Perhaps the two favourites to win it are going side by side down towards the chicane.
They are. Let's see how it all pans out. So there is John Higgins, who is, I think, now closing in on the race leader. 1.36. The gap goes up to 1.4 as they come under braking into the chicane. And it's thought that was all going to go a little bit pear-shaped there, but it does all sort itself out. Henderson across the line and Martin in third place at the head of this little group, with Brad Smith and Nathan Smith all involved as well. Picker Smith to maybe get up towards the podium. But yeah, this is why we love the reverse grid racing. And of course, nobody is hurt in the proceedings.
No, thank goodness for that. Rather predictably, by the way, Richard, I've just realised I've been getting my Smiths mixed up. So the white car that I've been calling Brad Smith is Nathan Smith.
Right.
So, yeah, Brad Smith hadn't actually made the sort of progress that I thought he had. But he is now there. So Josh Martin third, Nathan Smith fourth. But Brad Smith needs to try and get past Nathan, really, before Martin gets too far up the road.
Higgins is really in the leader at the moment as well. Just look at that gap. He's scything it down. So we're going to see Higgins get his first period led. He's got a little bit more work to do to catch up and, of course, pass. And we know that we haven't seen too much lead passing going on with Joel Lask's very dominant performance in race number one. But Higgins is really piling the pressure on now to Stuart Henderson, the race leader. Higgins will be thinking about where he can make a move. Through the chicane he goes, rides a little bit of curb there, all neat and tidy. Onto the Wheatcroft straight, across the line, ticks off another lap, 18 minutes to go, plenty of time. Josh Martin in third. If it stays like this, will be a very heavy scorer as well. And let's see, as Higgins goes through, John Higgins Jr. in second position. Do I look away and see what the lap times are? No, I can't. I've got to concentrate. That's always a bad habit of mine, as people will know. And it's Higgins piling the pressure on. Here he comes down through the crane of curves, in towards the old hairpin. He's still building momentum. He's taking his line a little bit tighter through the old hairpin than the race leader. And the momentum might come somewhere else. But now this is definitely a close battle for the lead.
Yes, it is, and Higgins keen to get on with this. He's almost pushing Henderson up the hill, and in fact, maybe there was a tap, maybe Henderson just outbraked himself, but either way, John Higgins slips through on the inside, and it was made relatively easy for the driver of car number 16. So Higgins then leads the way out of Coppice Corner. Henderson in second, Josh Martin in third, though, will have gained out of all of that, and he's only about 1.7 seconds off the race lead right now, with still Nathan Smith fending off Brad Smith, actually. So Nathan Smith holding on to fourth, Brad Smith fifth, Lask sixth, Taylor seventh. So some of the front runners from race one are starting to become a factor in this race, but I have to say the revelation so far has been the man who just claimed the race lead.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, isn't it, to watch? And you know, we've got the cliche of the cream rising to the top. We've got all of the front runners from race number one, plus some newcomers. Stuart Henderson running well, so good to see him there. Nathan Smith, Brad Smith, Joel Lask sixth, Nicky Taylor following him in seventh, Kenny Presto holding good station in eighth place. And for Higgins, it's now just needs to get his head down, build the gap over the second place man Henderson, and we'll see whether Josh Martin can close up on Henderson and maybe have a stab at Higgins. Can I afford that look at the lap times at the moment? Higgins best lap 1:15.2 and Josh Martin 1:15.7. So Higgins is quicker. 2:38, got 2:48, 2:17. So we have got quicker drivers, but Higgins here has put himself in a very, very good position with his opening laps.
Adam Lyle plunging down the timing tower. He'd almost broken into the top 10, but he's been losing a handful of places. In fact, he's down to 19th place now, so there's been some drama a little bit further down the order. Andy Carroll out of the race. So too is, we've got a couple actually, Radu and Smith as well. That's Smith of the matte variety, number 22, so 3 retirements from the race so far, but at the front of the field, things getting more and more competitive. Josh Martin right on the tail now of Stuart Henderson, and surely lining up a move here into Redgate Corner. The door is left wide open, but Josh not quite late enough on the brakes, not quite close enough realistically. Takes a much tighter line though, rides that curb to rotate the car through Redgate Corner, but we saw, didn't we, that Stuart Henderson wasn't easy to overtake for John Higgins, and I see no reason why he'll make this any easier for Josh Martin.
Let's see what Martin can do. We've got, I think the Smiths have changed around now, haven't we? With Brad Smith ahead of Nathan Smith, which is different from the last time I looked at the screen for sure. Here we come. Is he just joshing? He is. He's going to have a look up the inside. Are they going to touch? I tell you what, Henderson saw him and also sees the gap and the fact that he's got a little bit more momentum here. Wonderful shot overhead, lovely direction as they continue to go side by side. And surely it's Henderson that's got the line. He has consolidate second, but now look at Brad Smith closing up. Superb stuff to watch them close up now here. So are we going to get Josh Martin into P2 because he's now got to defend that third place from Brad Smith?
Oh, on the inside, late on the brakes. There's going to be a bit of a hit check over the Kirkos Martin. They both get a run on Henderson in front, and they're all starting to stack up. Here comes Joel Lask to the outside now. The race one winner is suddenly right back at the races. Who is going to come out of this on top? I think it is going to be the order. Poor old Josh Martin down to 6th place.
Yeah, Josh will be ruining his luck. That's not to say that he won't fight back. He can. He's capable of doing it. So he's in the mix. He knows what he's got to do. The white car of Nathan Smith immediately in front of him. But up into second place now is Brad Smith. This is wonderful stuff. Lask is third at the moment. And John Higgins cleared by 3 seconds. Really did time his early laps, by my reckoning, very well indeed. Getting into that lead, and he's going to have to work hard to hold on to it. Still got 13 minutes, well, nearly 14 actually, left of this race. So still time for the other drivers to close in as we watch Smith, the overhead view of Smith leading in the lime green car from Lask, who goes slightly tighter there, trying to close up on the second place man. Wearing this is Nicky Taylor. We all thought Nicky was going to be ahead of Lask, didn't we, the way the podium interviews went? Not the case at the moment.
No, but I wouldn't count him out just yet. He's on the back of this group in 7th place. So we've got second all the way down to 7th under a very small blanket. But Joel Lask surely can't believe his luck here, really, because he was struggling to catch up to this group a couple of laps ago. And suddenly he is third and looking down the barrel maybe of 2nd place. He's right on the tail of Brad Smith. But Brad Smith, of those front runners in race 1, perhaps now the best place. And we know he is good at keeping a potentially quicker driver behind him, because that's what he said he did to Nicky Taylor throughout the duration of the first race. 3.5 seconds behind the race leader, though, this battle is taking place. John Higgins is absolutely scarpered.
Yeah, he's away. As I say, I think the key was well, obviously great driving through the race, but also really good use of the opening laps for him. But what a battle we've got on for P2 again. Lask is looking quick. It's all going to be about finding that one mistake, not necessarily a mistake, maybe just a gap, and gaining a little bit of extra momentum. Here they come again, close as well for Taylor and Smith. Sorry, not Smith and Taylor. It is Martin and Smith, then Taylor and Henderson immediately by then. So Stuart Henderson holding on well at the moment to the top 6 as we look back at the number 8 car, Joel Lask, still trying to get into that second position. And this really just shows you how much hard work it is to race cleanly and fairly.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're so close to each other at such high speeds, and the precision that requires is challenging enough. But then you also throw in that thing that is unique to sim racing, the fact that, you know, all of these drivers are at opposite corners of the country and indeed further afield. For a few of them, there is that natural sort of internet latency almost, that slight bit of lag that you can get sometimes, netcode they call it in some sim racing circles, where, you know, you can be a few feet behind one car and then all of a sudden you're right on their rear bumper just because the internet connections are struggling to keep up with each other. That makes it even harder to run absolutely bumper to bumper like this, and the very best sim racers actually allow for that, and they get just close enough that they're not, you know, in the danger zone, and they try and race within those parameters. So yeah, certainly Joel Lask, Brad Smith, experienced sim racers, the pair of them, and they understand all about what that can do to your race. Josh Martin, 4th place as well, not out of this fight yet. I'm intrigued though now, Richard, and I'm going to have to look at the timing screen to get an answer to this question. I'm intrigued to see whether, if they stop battling, they can catch the leader, but stop battling, they are not.
No, I think they are closing in a little bit. They're working with each other to a certain extent, and Lask just backs out of that. On various corners, you can see he gets maybe a better run in and potentially out, but there just isn't the space to make the most of the added momentum. And you can just see that this is classic mini racing, classic saloon car racing of the highest nature, I've got to say, between these two. So Smith and Lask, are we going to see another P2 for Brad Smith here? Lask wants to get another 2 steps up on the podium. Josh Martin still there in 4th place with Nathan Smith right behind him. And again, you see how close they go. This is the climb up into Coppice Corner. Now they come up, as mentioned, as Andy mentioned on the hot lap that we saw. It's a blind corner when you go in. You can't see what's happening, but all well with them. What's the gap now? 2.7, 2.8 between Higgins, 2nd and 3rd. The gap, I think, is stabilising at the moment with 9 minutes on the clock to go. Down into the chicane we go again. Josh Martin still a little bit further back. Nicky Taylor getting keen now, looking racy on Nathan Smith. So he might have a battle, not only for 2nd position close up, but that 5th and 6th place. Henderson a little bit further back in 7th. Churchhouse in 8th is going to score well over the 2 races as well. But Lass still putting the pressure on. It's, like all good racing, a devil to know where to look.
Well, yes, I think I do know what's going on here, though, Richard. I think these two are working together. I've seen a couple of occasions where Joel Lask has lent the bumper to Brad Smith, not in an aggressive way, actually trying to push him down the straights and some of the other flat-out sections, and they both followed each other onto the grass, actually. So in tune with each other are they at the moment, but it's working. They're consistently 0.3 of a second a lap quicker than John Higgins, and they've got just under 9 minutes left to try and close that gap. That mistake at the old hairpin hasn't helped them, but I am pretty certain that for the time being, at least, these two have formed a temporary truce. They're working together to try and close in on the race leader.
If only we could have truces globally, eh? I'm not going to get into politics, but wouldn't that be marvellous? But here we come down into the chicane we go once again. At last, there they are working together. At some point, there will have to be a sort out, an end to the piece, and they will get stuck in, because last, I think, is still racing him. How much closer are they going to get? Are they going to get close enough in the remaining 8 minutes to Higgins to be able to put in a challenge? And at some point, one of the drivers will realise that, and I think it's going to be Lask, who's there at the moment, the chasing car, the black and blue. Josh Martin on his own, still got Nicky Taylor trying to have a go at Nathan Smith behind. So really good battles going on with those guys in the top 5. Everyone else still running very, very well indeed. And here we go again. Lash dropping back just a tad, so he'll maybe try and build up a little bit more momentum. The gap, 2.4 at the moment. It has come down, but of course you could also get into the scenario where John Higgins Jr. might be managing his tyres and realising that he doesn't have to drive at 100%. It might be 99.9 to keep him in the lead. And bear in mind, he only registered today. I think he was online pretty quickly doing some laps, but hasn't had the same amount of time in this specification. I'm guessing John is going to be a level 0 driver as well, so won't have the ballast that these guys have in terms of the virtual reality racing club success ballast that you have for all the club members. So I'm not making excuses for him or for the others, but you know, he won't have that ballast on board. So he's getting used to it, and as he goes up the rankings, he will get more ballast.
So John Higgins and Brad Smith, both 0 ballast, we're hearing. So yeah, that's a good point though, Richard, because especially over a 25-minute race, you know, that has an effect on your tyre life too, and that should make his life a little bit easier in the closing stages. That being said, he dropped half a second that time to Smith and Lask behind him, so I think they're going to keep on working together for the time being. 6.5 minutes to go. At that rate, they'll be with him with a couple of laps to go, so well worth sticking together for now for these two. But if all of those years of Fun Cup commentary, Richard, have taught me anything, it's that working together doesn't tend to last very long, even if it is mutually beneficial for the drivers involved.
I'm going to say that if anyone's watching and knows me as a man who, from Legends Cars Racing, doing lots of stats, Andy McEwen can outdo me for stats every day of the week. He's an absolutely superb stats man, he's Mr. McEwen, and absolute pleasure to do like the Fun Cup races because he's got it all at his fingertips. It's a lot of research, so my hat goes off to him. It's absolutely brilliant. So yeah. Yeah, join us for some Fun Cup racing later in the season as well. We're really looking forward to doing those. Some of these guys would be good in there and might be good for that bounty, you know, as well.
Yes, £10,000 up for grabs, actually, isn't there? So, if you fancy going from sim racing to real racing, we can direct you that way. But right now, all about mini racing and all about this gap continuing, Richard, to come down that time by about 0.6 of a second.
Visibly closer now, isn't it? With Higgins still the leader, and this is new territory for him. It's a new club for him, a new group of racers. I suspect that he's probably raced with some of them before. We can check that out if he stays on the podium for sure. Smith's still second. Lask is there in third. And now Josh Martin getting closer to those guys as well. So Josh Martin, I'm going to put an appeal out. We need some female racers in the championship as well, because we need good representation. So hopefully if anyone's watching and wants to get involved, redress the balance, that would be pretty good as well. But these 4 guys, all very close. And this is heading, as reverse grid races can, I think, potentially for a grandstand finish.
I think you're right. The timing is perfect, isn't it? That little mistake that these two made a few laps ago down at the old hairpin, it just put the pause button on this gap shrinking, and that has just allowed, I think, for this to really be timed perfectly. They're going to get there with a lap or two to go at this rate. On that previous lap, a 1:16.0 for the leader, 15.3 for Brad Smith, and a 15.2 for Joel Lask. So Joel Lask was 0.8 of a second faster than the race leader. But of course, Richard, once they get there, they will no longer be working in unison, and all of a sudden Lask and Smith will probably start battling over second place, and that could still let Higgins off the hook. So, 4 minutes to go. He's just got to weather this storm, I think. When they get there, place the car in the right position, defend where he has to, and maybe try and play these two off against each other, because they're both going to want to be the first one to have a shot at Higgins.
They will. That's a really, really good point, isn't it? And there they go. I was wondering about Martin getting closer. I think they've maybe seen him off for the minute. Nicky Taylor now up into 5th. I'm not sure if Andy mentioned that. Apologies while I was looking away. But Nicky Taylor 5th now ahead of Nathan Smith, Churchill, Curtis, Press and Blakey completing your top 10 as the leaders come down into the chicane again. And Higgins now is within arm's reach of the chasers. We've got 3 minutes 27 on the clock, and it is going to be nip and tuck as we head. This is the view looking back virtually from the race leader. Brad Smith in second position. He's going to need the towels out again at the end of this, because he's having another workout. Is the VRRC's hottest racer, and he's really putting the pressure on, but so too is Joel Lask in that 3rd place, and he's being made to work. He's done a lot of hard work coming through from the back of the race finishers from race number 1. He's made it up onto the podium, which he didn't think he could do. He was all about Nicky Taylor doing it. Taylor's in 5th and trying to close up on Josh Martin. Still this wonderful battle for second, which is now, I think, about second place, because it looks like Lask, to me, is starting to put that pressure on, and that could be playing into the hands of John Higgins Jr.
Yeah, well, Higgins responded nicely on the previous lap, did a 15.4, only 0.2 off his previous best, and actually only 0.5 slower than these two. So, that will further, I think, incentivise Joel Lask to have a go at Smith, because if he doesn't think they're going to catch Higgins, then he'll want to try and make this move if he can. 2 laps to go at the end of this one, I reckon. So still that gap hovering at 0.7 or so. And with every corner that goes by, Joel Lask's willingness to follow in the wheel tracks of Brad Smith is going to drop and drop. He wants to try and make a move. And Redgate, Richard, could be his opportunity to do so.
It will be. Let's see what he's going to do. Is it all going to be covered off? Is he going to go for the proper racing line? Higgins does. They all do. There's no attack here other than on the racing line, and to build momentum as they head down towards Hollywood. The 2nd and 3rd place cars still trying to reel in the race leader. The gap has come down. Remember, at its biggest gap, it was 3 seconds Higgins had, so they've eaten away at it. They've battled with each other. They've worked with each other as well, but they've closed down the race leader, John Higgins Jr., who is out front. Surely it is going to be between these 3 drivers with 1:32 on the clock. Through Schwantz Corner, up into McLean's they go again, continuing the climb at this venue. You can see that from the graphics. Last dropping back a little bit. This could give the impetus to Smith to close in and maybe have a challenge on Higgins out front. Let's see how this pans out. Higgins takes the wide run out of the second part of Coppice onto the exhibition straight once again. Down the straight they go. And I tell you what, 2nd and 3rd not looking close. So this is maybe good for Brad Smith. Is the pressure off Smith? Can he put the pressure on the race leader as we head on to the last lap?
Yeah, Lask made a bit of a mess of McLean's, really. Missed the corner, but then Smith made a mess of the chicane. And so it's actually almost an identical lap time between the top 2. And Joel Lask is right back on the rear bumper of Brad Smith. But the pressure for John Higgins now must be almost unbearable. He cannot afford to put a wheel wrong, and if he doesn't put a wheel wrong, I think he might have enough in the bag here, because second place is where the battle is at. Down through the Craner curves they go for the final time, and Joel Lask surely now looking to try and find a way through, doesn't jink to the inside at the old hairpin, and that realistically, Richard, means he's got really 2 more opportunities to try and make his move, and Brad Smith, I think, is going to have to turn his focus to defending from those potential moves.
Yeah, Josh Martin coming up to play in the mix as well in 4th place. Martin wants a late podium, but John Higgins Jr. looking very good here. Lask could maybe have a look up the inside, hasn't quite got the momentum, so it's Higgins that will lead them out of Coppice. Still the race leader, Smith in 2nd, Lask in 3rd. This is all going to be about the run down the exhibition straight for the last time, Andy.
Yes, it is. Towards the braking zone they go then. Brad Smith has a car length in hand. I don't think Lask is really going to be close enough, but he'll know that Smith made a mistake here a lap ago. This could become a drag race to the line. John Higgins, though, is going to claim victory for the first time here at the VRRC after a sterling performance in the reverse grid race at Donington Park. Brad Smith hangs on to 2nd, and Joel Lask will be very pleased. They'll both be very pleased, actually, with a pair of podium finishes. Josh Martin 4th, Nicky Taylor 5th, and Nathan Smith in 6th place. The top 4 drivers, Richard, at the end of that 25-minute race, covered by less than a second.
Absolutely brilliant, Ray. Thoroughly enjoyed our opening meeting, and still the drivers continue. Here comes Lee Piercy. Haven't had a chance to talk about Lee over the course of the day. We'll put that to rights over the next few rounds for sure. So Piercy coming across the line in 12th place. Johnny Ogden next up. Then it was Simon Thorpe in treble 2. And the 43 of Sam Milner. So I think a pretty good way, a good couple of races to get our championship underway.
100%, some fantastic action across the 2 races. I think we're in for a very competitive 8 weeks, aren't we? There's no clear favourite, there's no driver who seems to have an obvious pace advantage, and of course, once we start throwing the full bulk of the success ballast at them, that could change again over the next couple of rounds. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from our top 3 drivers, and we'll have the chance to do that in just a few moments' time. Well, welcome back, everybody. We're all just about catching our breath after what was a phenomenal second race of the evening here at Donington Park. Our top 3 drivers join us in the commentary box, and right until the final few moments, we weren't really sure who they'd be and in what order they'd be finishing, but it was, in the end, John Higgins the victor, Brad Smith 2nd, and it was Joel Lask in 3rd place. And we're going to continue, I think, the trend set by Richard John Neal after the first race. We'll start with our 3rd place finisher, and that, on this occasion, was Joel Lask. Joel, congratulations, back on the podium. Not quite the race win, but honestly, with such a sizable and very talented field of drivers out there, a podium's not a bad result, is it?
Yeah, that was actually really good. We got through the pack a lot quicker than I thought we would. There was a few little collisions like we thought there was going to be and whatnot. And then it was just a case of push to catch up with the front runner. Yeah, we battled away down there. We had a bit more pace probably on the cards, but it's about the points. I didn't want to send any silly moves or anything like that. So yeah, just took it a little bit easier.
There was a key moment, I think, really, wasn't there, where Josh sort of got tangled up coming out of the chicane, and you got the run on him. I think he was battling Stuart Henderson at the time, and you just sailed around the outside and got past a couple of drivers who you could easily have ended up spending the whole race stuck behind. That sort of transformed your chances then, didn't it?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I saw them all battling. The thing is, if I'm right on their bumper coming into that chicane, someone could mess it up. Like it's such a treacherous corner. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to back off a little bit, let them do their bit. And as they did, I just managed to get a cracking run and more than what I thought it would, to be fair, and just had the overspeed to go right round the outside. So I was quite happy with that. But that was sort of a one in a million send.
And it worked, and squeaky clean as well, which was nice to see. And then after that, you were sort of locked in behind Brad Smith. At first, we thought that you were really pushing to try and, force a mistake or try and force the move. But actually, it looked, and maybe you can confirm or deny this, it looked like you were working together for a while there to try and catch John, but just maybe slightly ran out of time.
Yeah, I think we did just run out of time. He had quite a gap, and we were closing him probably about 4/10 a lap around that, but it just wasn't enough. I think if we'd had a couple more laps and it'd been all right. But there's no point me trying to send Brad because I mean that would just have stopped our chances of going for the lead. So I thought, you know what, I'll tuck him behind him. Let's push together. Not that he knew that. I think he probably thought I was going to be sending him, but yeah, try and get up there, and we did. But yeah, just run out of laps for that.
Overall, solid night, race win from pole position in race one. Good points scored, back on the podium race two. Have you got your championship head on, or is it a little bit too early for that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I've come close a few times, and made some mistakes, and some silly moves and stuff like that. And this, I think, championship we got the opportunity to do really well. So yeah, I think game face on now, and let's push for points more than victory. Just stay consistent throughout the championship.
Good stuff. Well, fantastic night for you. Great to have you back at the pointy end and looking competitive, Joel. We wish you the very best of luck for next week. We'll see you then.
Cheers, Andy.
Oh, Joel Lask, third place finish there, Richard, and yeah, an overall very strong start to his season.
Absolutely right, and strong start as well for Brad Smith. Brad, what's the towel situation like in the sweat situation after race
Well, I'm
two?
still waiting for my mum to bring me one, but she's obviously slacking. Did we swap it over with the commentators so you could say you spoke to the hottest man, or?
Well, I think we did plenty of that during the racing, to be perfectly honest. That was a hard slog though, wasn't it? And it was Nicky Taylor all over you. Well, not giving you a hard time, which you sucked up in race number one, and then Joel in race two. So you've really had a workout this evening.
Yeah, it's been a good way to get back into it. Let's just put it that way.
So how much, you've had a break. How much sim work have you done on your break?
None. I literally sold my rig and everything. I got rid of everything.
No way.
Yeah, and then I bought Scott Bugner's, who used to race with VRRC, was Joel's teammate. I bought his rig. I didn't have enough money to buy my wheel and pedals yet, and he's kindly lent me it. So I've got to say thank you to him until I get my own, which should be the end of the month.
That's cool. So is it on order? Because I know my son's got some kit on order at the moment, and they keep pushing it back.
It'll be getting ordered at the end of the month, but they've promised me 2-day delivery. So.
And specifically, what kit do you get? It's not something I know a huge amount about, but if you try names at me, I might.
I'm going for the Acetec La Prima, not the La Prima, the La Forte. It's quite high-end stuff.
Yeah.
So better than what Scott had. So it'll be a whole new learning curve once again. But hopefully I get back.
All right. James Scott. So has Scott packed up then? Is he still racing MGs at the moment?
Yeah, Scott's done this thing called growing up, and he's bought a house. So I think his missus told him that's got to go. So I was like, oh, well, I'll have it. Don't worry.
Yeah, you're sort of intimating that kit's expensive, and if any other halves are sort of listening in, it's not that expensive, honestly. So
compared to real racing, it's not.
For sure, yeah, for sure. So obviously with kit on the way and set up on the way for you, is it all hands to the pumps for next week? You got Silverstone International. Silverstone National? Is that a track that you like? Do you have to do a lot of practice to get back in for that?
I'll be I think I've done it a few times with Rich before in the academy.
Yeah,
but it'll be a case of a fair few laps again. Yeah, just to learn the track again and learn the lines and braking points, because I can guarantee I forgot every single one of them.
Race of podiums, good return though. Does that sort of fire you up and keep you happy going away this evening?
Yeah, definitely. It's good. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
And lastly, have you done the points in your head? Do you know who everyone is, or are you guys not that far thinking about stats and stuff?
I'm not that clever enough.
Neither am I. I haven't worked
To
them
be
out
honest with
either.
you, I cannot do that. No, I'll have to look.
I suspect that Andy McEwen's probably working them out as we speak, because that Andy is absolute legend on stats. So, Brad, really lovely to catch up with you. I think it's just Rich Hayden want the word with Brad as well. Oh, Rich was talking. He's off there. So. Okay. Oh, I think second in the championship, Brad, at the moment. So we'll get an update on the points. But Brad, lovely to talk to you. Look forward to talking to you on the podium, or maybe pole one later on in the season. But many congratulations on the podium. Back to Andy McEwen for our winners interview.
Yes, thank you very much. Stats may be my thing, Richard. Maths not, unfortunately. So I do rely on the VRRC website to give me the updated points, which we'll perhaps reference in a moment or two. It makes very good reading for our race one winner, I must say. But actually, it also makes decent reading for our second race winner, John Higgins, who, after a solid first race and a more than solid second race, is right up there in the points as well. John, congratulations. Not a bad start to your time racing with us here at the VRRC, already in the winner's circle. And you've got to be really happy with the way that you drove that. We didn't see you put a foot wrong.
Yeah, from starting 18th on the grid and going down to turn one, and I think I came out to turn 1/10 or something stupid. Every car was just spinning off left, right, and center. I chose the right piece of road and made it through to the lead. And I see that everyone was fighting behind, so I thought this is my time to go. But about 7 minutes towards the end, my front left tire went completely dead, and the people behind me were working together to catch me up. So luckily, the race ended when it did, because I think it would have got really interesting if it went a bit longer.
You certainly had quite a bit working against you, really, towards the second half of the race, but that's what made the mid part of the race so important for you. You built that gap, you managed to get away, and on your own like that, just sort of logging laps, that's probably a good place for you to be, because I think it's fair to say you've not had a huge amount of practice in preparation for this, have you?
No, mate. Richard put on Facebook this morning about him commentating tonight, and Dag tagged me into it. I got in contact with the admin of the league, and here I am. And thanks to Dad, really, we spent a few hours this afternoon working on the setup and stuff like that.
It was such a late entry, John, that I don't even have a graphic for you. So apologies for that. We'll have one for you next week.
It's all good, mate.
I just got to say, it was John Senior's birthday yesterday. So he was probably still hungover. It might have signed you up in a drunken stupor.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic to have you here, though. And I guess, coming in with not much in the way of expectations, really. Have those expectations changed now, maybe after such a strong start to the season?
Definitely, mate. I was just coming into this for a bit of fun. I was literally expecting to be within around the top 10. I didn't expect to win a race, so I'll definitely have my championship head on from now on and put the practice in and work on some setups every week.
Well, yeah, and of course, we're going to throw some ballast at you now as well, because you've done so well this first round. But we are at least going to a track where that shouldn't make a huge difference. Silverstone National, expecting lots of close quarters, slipstreaming racing there. You're going to ask your dad for some tips on how to come out on top in that?
Definitely, mate. We will be spending a few hours on the setup, I'm sure. So.
It's going to be good fun. We're really looking forward to Silverstone. Fantastic to have you on board, John. And yeah, who knows? This could be the start of a championship winning campaign. But huge congratulations on the race win, regardless.
Thank you very much.
Well then, Richard, that's our first pair of races done, and two very deserving and very happy race winners. But I think the real winners, to use an old cliche, were us, the viewers, because they were two fantastic races.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Lovely to be back in the groove doing a little bit of sim commentary. Nice to be working with you, Andy, as well, and gets me warmed up for the year, because we'll go and do some real stuff as well, and it is always a pleasure. Next time we're at Silverstone. I'm not. I'm away next week on duty, so the elephant is in the room next week.
Very good. You've been on form tonight, Richard, I have to say.
I try occasionally. So Silverstone next week. That's going to be a good one, isn't it? I will certainly watch it back, even if I can't watch it live. Promise I'll do that.
Yeah, worth tuning in. I think the international layout as well, rather than the national, which I think I might have said just now.
Yeah,
but
I said it wrong earlier on as well, so apologies for that.
I see. Yeah, no, international circuit, which is a bit more technical, a bit longer, but still has those two really long straights, lots of slipstreaming, and plenty of room for 3 and 4 wide racing. So yeah, I think we'll see plenty of that. I'm very much looking forward to being here to talk you through it.
Look forward to it too. So thank you to all of our drivers that have put on a great show for us this evening, and to Rich Hayden for inviting me along. Great to work with Andy. Thanks, everyone, if you have joined us. Hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope that you join the team next week at Silverstone. I'll be back for Castle Combe, which is our 3rd event of the year. The final thank you, Camus, and their sponsorship of the JCW Mini Cup, powered by Phoenix Racing. Thanks to all our sponsors. And if this is anything else, I just think I'll say take care. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.